2024 ain't a joke. Ballot on the rise. It's time to vote. Get yourself registered. There's still hope. And if you ain't know, gotta still do.
Because we are interested in having affordable housing.
Yeah.
But that's all across this nation. And so as we are here gathered together, this is a critical time to talk about the issues that we face, right, as voters and taxpayers. My vote goes with my money. So do I have some taxpayers in the room?
Oh, yes, we
do. And so as we are looking at who will be representing us in our local, county, and state seats, we want to make sure that they speak our voice, right?
Yeah.
Come on, let's thank. And at this time, I'm going to introduce Vanya Quarles, who is starting over, and she's going to talk about some legislation that we're going to see on our ballot.
Thank you for that. My name is Vanya Quarles, and I work for Starting Over, and we are a transitional housing and reentry service provider, and we operate in Riverside County and LA County. And I have had the pleasure of partnering with Dr. Green on several initiatives and campaigns. And what brings me out here today are two very important propositions. And that would be Prop 6 and Prop 36. Today I'm a practicing attorney, but I've spent time in prison, county jails in the state of California. And Proposition 6 would put an end to forced labor inside prisons, inside the county jails. And it would help to prioritize rehabilitation over working, over labor. And so it doesn't mean that people won't work while they're incarcerated. They may still elect to do that. But it prioritizes substance use treatment, education, the things that keep us from going back. We pay $136,000 a year per person that's incarcerated. And recidivism, the rate at which we go back to jail and prison, says that the system is failing. And so one way to change that and interrupt that trajectory is through education and rehabilitation. So we are urging a yes vote on Prop 6. And I'm not talking to the legislators, the people who want to be elected. I'm talking to you that have the power of the vote. And so if you're in this room and you're 17 and you're not registered to vote, the registration table is right there. And we would urge you to vote. Tell your friends and your neighbors to vote, because your vote is your power. Prop 36, controversial piece of legislation that is going to be on the ballot. How many of you hate Prop 47? That has been the messaging for the last decade, that the problem or the source of your problem is Prop 47. Prop 47 was a ballot initiative that we worked on and saw it pass throughout the state with 60% of the vote. From the time it passed in 2014 until today, we have seen law enforcement try to push it back. Why? Because it reduced 6 low-level felonies to misdemeanors, took the money that was saved and invested it in the community. K-12 education, victim services, substance use treatment, housing, the things that keep people from going back to jail. And so finally, after 10 years of trying to repeal 47, violate the will of the people, they found out that Walmart, Target, and Home Depot were hurting. And they said they were hurting because of snatch and grabs. I think Amazon is beating the heck out of all of them. Whatever the reason, they decided to roll back to a drug war 2.0 philosophy of criminalizing simple possessions and putting the money that was going to community back into the prisons. And we have the power to stop that. We are the only people in this room that have the power to stop that. So we are calling for no on Prop 36. We're calling for a no on Prop 36 because crime is proven to be reducing, not just in our county, but throughout the state of California. When it comes to property crimes, which are related to drug use, they're declining. Violent crimes are declining. But if you listen to rhetoric that's designed to rob the people and bug the prison system, you would believe the opposite. So I'm here to tell you the truth. Prop 47 did what it's supposed to do, and it's working, and it's not time to circle back to what we know doesn't work. So, any questions about 6 or 36? To the people? To the people? How many of you are registered to vote? Tell them that you are voting. Tell them how you're voting and what's important to you, because they will listen to you. You're their constituents, they work for you. When we go to Sacramento, whose house is it? Our house. When we go to DC, whose house is it? Our house. When we go to the supervisors meeting, whose house is it? Our house.
I'm Nathan Kim, I'm the operations director for Starting Over Strong. We support the most vulnerable in society through advocacy, legislation, and policy. Proposition 5 would change the current law that requires, right now, for any bond measure for a city or a county or a municipal district, to have a bond measure passed to build things, you have to have 2/3 of the vote. That's a really high standard, and there's lots of bonds that fail because they don't get that. Prop 5 would lower that to 55%. It's still a supermajority, but those 12 points would make a huge difference in terms of what the voters would approve. The school districts did that in 22, and if you've seen the building school district has taken off because they now only need 55% to pass. And so the logic is that if the school districts can do it, why can't the cities and counties and other districts do it? Anyone have any questions about Prop 5?
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm a municipal officer, and I look at a lot of bonds come through the cities as being supportive or non-supportive. So can you be more specific on how the city would be affected? Because our vote really is casted for, in our city with Leslie is 134,500 people. So give me more of the detail for the municipality.
So if your city puts a bond measure on the ballot, or a county or a municipality puts a bond measure on the ballot and puts it to the voters, then for that to pass, the voters have to vote 55%, yes. Currently, the voters have to vote 67%, yes. So there are bond measures that are well written, have wonderful oversight and everything else, but they fail because that 2/3 standard is too high.
Thank you.
We're going to have questions and answers. So if you
Okay.
want to know all the questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Prop 33 would repeal a piece of legislation called Contra-Hoskins Act. The Contra-Hoskins Act was signed almost 40 years ago, and it outlawed rent control moving forward. Some cities had it before then, and so that's still in place. But we have not had rent control at a local level in almost 50 years. Prop 33 would give cities the option of having rent control. It would not do it for it would not make the wholesale state for every city have to have it. Every city would have to have their city council and their staff work it out. So it would give each city council or municipal advisory board the option to have rent control. The number one funder of the As Against It is the California Apartment Association. Do I need to say anything more about it?
No, 33.
No on 33. Yes on 5.
The next person on our agenda is Sonia Gray Hunt, and she represents 1 million homes and housing now. Let's welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Everybody's full, and we're hungry, and we're hungry to make some changes, correct? Right. So I just want to share with you, I got a lot going on. So I just want to share with you about the 1 Million Home Campaign. The 1 Million Home Campaign is a promise that our Governor Newsom promised in 2022. He made a pledge that they were going to build 2.1 million homes by 2030. At this present time, they only met that goal by 1%.
Oh, wow.
Yes. As I want you to listen to the data and let it fester inside you. But we also know, as we drive any freeway in any city throughout the state of California, we see that they have met the benchmark of building market rate homes past 100% of their goals of the RENA, which is a regional housing assessment allocation. So they have met that goal of over 100%. But for affordable housing, especially for those with little or no income, especially for those that for that 30% AMI, which means you're paying 30% of your income, is not taking place. How many people in this room pay more than 30% of their income towards rent or mortgage? That's all? 30%. How many people pay 50% more of your income go towards just your rent, your mortgage? Some people are paying more, up to 75% of their net income, not your gross income, your net income that you're bringing in. So we know that's problematic. When we talking about stronger community, safer communities, we know that people need housing, and people need to be feeling that they can stay in place. So one of the things that we want to do is hold our governor accountable to what he already stated that he would do. Now, it's always good to say something's going to be done in theory, but how do we do it in practice? Right. When we talk about the allocated dollars that need to do such an event in regards to getting those homes at the level that we need them, we have, with the data that been found, that we need an average of $18 billion per year for the next 10 years to meet that goal. Now, when we look at our state budget, we see that 1% of our general funds go towards housing and homelessness. 1%. 1%. But if you look at our budget, we see that 13.9% of our budget go towards rehabilitation, prisons and rehabilitation centers. So that shows where his legions lie. And so we know that when we talk about the prison systems and everything that's taking place with our unhoused populations and what's taking place now, where we're going to be having more citations and suspicions and criminalized in our community, our unhoused community members that's already struggling. And then we talk about the folks that's already in the home, that's paying more than 30%, 50% of their income, that's at risk of becoming homeless. We have had some wins in the past where we were able to pass different legislation, where we were able to get kind of like a rent cap from AB 1482, which gave that 10%, that they could go up no more than 10% of what your current rent is. But everybody didn't benefit from that. You had to come in before 2016. It had to be buildings that was older than 20 years. And we also know that a lot of folks that's on fixed income, that 10% adds up really quick. That can really make people unhoused. So we know that we need to do more. And we know that we need to build homes. And not only do we need to build homes, we need to make sure that homes is going to be built underneath that the 1 million home campaign that we're doing here. Even though we need more, but that's where we starting at right now for this particular campaign. We know that we have to take it out of the hands of corporations coming in building. We got to take it out of the hands of city and county building. But one of the things, they can come in, but once that covenant is over with, we don't have a covenant, then they can go market rate at any time. So we want to talk about how do we do more community housing, what that look like, how do we do land trust to make sure that it stays affordable for generations to come. So I want you to pay attention to the different languages that's going to be coming up. You'll be hearing a lot more throughout the up and coming months of what it means to participate in the 1 Million Home campaign, making sure to share that information, becoming involved. You know, making sure that we hold our governor accountable to what he said he was going to do. Let's tell him to stop building these prisons, stop creating systems that's going to impact our folks to put in this prison, and make sure that we want a thriving, safe community. People need homes. They need safe homes. They need something where they don't have to double up and have 3 or 4 different generations living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, or having people living in so many multi-generations living in one dwelling. So we have the funds. If you look at the allocated dollars, the money is in the state of California. Let's hold our city officials, our county officials, our governor accountable to making sure, now I'm going to turn to talk to you guys, making sure that when you going into these spaces, that you think of the people in these rooms and what it means for them to advocate. And making sure that we hear the voices of the people of what's needed around housing and security. So thank you. If there's any questions, I'll be more than answer any questions real quick. And I know we've been running a little bit behind. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
2024 ain't a joke. Ballot on the rise. It's time to vote. Get yourself registered. There's still hope. And if you ain't know, gotta still dope. Pledge to allegiance, not to the demons. Try to see changes in all 4 seasons. I'm my own ballot. Yeah, I'm in control. 3 consecutive years I made on a roll. Not a slam dunk, more like a finger roll. Cause sometimes progress can seem so slow. But how you complain if you won't go? And how we make changes without your vote? It's like a slippery slope. And we've been down this road. I heard it all before. And better days, I still want more. Stop idolize illusions that men create. We all complain the same thing, but the conditions don't change. Bow and arrow, pull back, no you propelling your lane. Watch this black girl fly, learn to rain's her name. Stop idolize illusions that men create. We all complain the same thing, but the conditions don't change. Bow and arrow, pull back, no you propelling your lane. Watch this black girl fly, learn to rain's my name. In my beast mode now, I'm just learning some things. Intellectual properties, I'm just adding some things. I'm a Bob Molly burning, loot some things. Try to make top dollar, but first they need change. By any means necessary, cause necessary means our few. Wake up the profit in you, the ballot or the bullet. Somebody has to do it, educate, organize, reflect, and stick to it. Your voice is your vote, so stick to it. Your voice is your vote, so stick to it. The ballot or the bullet, somebody has to do it, educate, organize, reflect, and stick to it.
Outstanding woman, an advocate in our community, one that has worked hard to make the high desert what the high desert needs to be. I have the pleasure of knowing her and calling her a friend. I want to introduce to some and present to others Miss Regina Weatherspoon Bell.
Sorry, I took the long way. You know what? First of all, good evening.
Good evening.
It is wonderful to see all of you candidates here. So thank you for being here. But most importantly, it is wonderful to see this room filled with community. They wanted me to come up there. I feel much more comfortable being here because I'm going to be asking you questions. So I feel comfortable being here. We're going to try and work it out. As we know, these things sometimes at the last minute things change, so bear with us, right? As we try to make this as an informative of a night as possible, because that's what you came here for, right? Before we get started, I want to do a little housekeeping. So I want to thank all of the organizations who hosted this tonight. And if you're here representing that organization, I'm going to ask you to please stand. So Victor Valley Family Resource Center, of course, we know Dr. Sharon Green. I am Rose, who is always at work, you know that surgery. So I got to give credit where credit is due. You got a beautiful wife who stands by you, supports you in everything. We all know Chan and CJ could not be here with us this evening. I'm not sure how much you know, but where is he? Chan. But we all know that CJ Page is the executive director. He's had a loss in his family, so please keep him in your positive thoughts and prayers as he endures that. Starting over. Please stand. May the great presentation go to the Family Assistance Program. Is there a representative in the house from Family Assistance? Yeah. Are you wearing two hats? Okay. And then also reimagining our community, which is commonly known as ROC. Is there a representative here from ROC this evening? All right, so now I have the task of trying to make this make sense in a way that we can all digest and walk out of here feeling a little bit more informed, aware, advised, and confident, right? Again, I want to say to the audience, you know what? There's a lot of powerful people who are sitting up here on the dais, but the power really is right here on this floor in this room. And the power is your vote. How many young people do we have that are 17, 18 years old in this room and eligible to register to vote? Right? If you haven't registered, register. It's important. It's your right. Take full advantage of it. The other thing I want to say before we get started is I'm really encouraged by all of the young people. We got babies in this room, but you know what? Knowledge is power, and power comes through osmosis in a lot of cases. And so you are exposing your children to power. And that is critically important. So especially for those parents who have those little ones, they are listening. They are taking it in. And you are in the right place at the right time. We are in a fight for our democracy. I don't think anybody would take issue with me on that. And so again, to our candidates, thank you for having the courage to want to run, to serve. For those of you who are already in office and serving, thank you. And we appeal to you, to whatever you do, always do it with community in mind. That's who's sending you to this office. And so please, when you are challenged, think about the high desert community and those who you serve. Because we sent you there to do a job for us. And if you do your job well, we got your back.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ricardo Ortega. I'm running for the 34th Assembly District. My district goes everything from Acton, Agua Dulce, all the way to the state Nevada line, down to 29 Palms, and then it goes back up to Apple Valley, Victorville, Hesperia. So I'm very excited to be here with you all. A little bit about who I am. I grew up in foster care, so I was a former foster youth in LA County. I wrote my first bill when I was 17 years old, my second bill when I was 19 years old. I'm currently the LA County Youth Commissioner, where I represent over 2.2 million young people across our county in LA. And I'm very excited to be here to fight for us to finally have a voice in Sacramento where it comes to healthcare, trauma centers, infrastructure, and jobs in our district. A lot of us are tired of driving hours to a good paying job. And it is time for us to have access here in the high desert. We pay our taxes, and it's time to get those funding coming back to our district. So thank you so much for having me.
All right.
I'm currently your assembly member representing you in Sacramento. I'm very proud to do that.
As you know, this area has been represented for decades, forever, underrepresented by previous representatives. I'm the current assembly member running for re-election this time. We in the assembly run for re-election over 2 years. This is my first term. I'm a city planner by profession, so the topics that you talked about before, housing and all of those propositions, I'm very familiar with them, and at the appropriate time I'll talk about them. Being a city planner brings me the perspective of what we need here in the high desert. Not only housing, but transportation, public transit. We go down below to get to work, and we just missed a lot of time coming back from work home because we don't have the time to spend with our kids, taking them to the soccer practice, the baseball practice, whatever extracurricular activities we want to have with them. It's been an honor for me to represent you. I've been able to bring resources in my first term. Look forward to keep doing that. And I need to get these candidates here to be elected so they can help me. Thank you.
Good afternoon, High Desert residents. My name is Valentin Godina, and I am running for City Council of Victorville for District 1. I have been a resident of Victorville for over 30 years and have always advocated for the betterment of the High Desert. In the past, I have created a music program for our youth that have kept them busy and kept them out of trouble. We've had over 300 students go through our program, and all of them graduated because of our program. I am Victorville. I am the High Desert. Please remember to vote for me November 5th, and we will bring more programs that our community desperately needs. Thank you.
Good evening, High Desert. I'm Lisa Middleton. I'm running for California State Senate, the newly drawn 19th district. It includes nearly 1 million people. It is almost the size of the state of West Virginia, and we got a number of voters in this district that would fit in really well in West Virginia. Not the folks in this room, though. This district goes all the way from the Coachella Valley to Barstow to the Nevada state line. I am running to make a difference. In the 7 years that I have been on City Council in Palm Springs, California, we have grown our economy. We have built affordable housing in our community. We have made our public service some of the best public service that you will find in any city, anywhere. And I am going to go to Sacramento and come back and deliver a fair share of infrastructure dollars and other things to this community, and most importantly, make sure that health care in this community is first rate. Thank you.
Good evening, High Desert. I'm Vivian Jordan. I'm running for Barstow Mayor. I am coming out of being an educator, so that is where my background lies. I saw in the classroom, I was trying to solve some problems that I saw that were coming out in the behaviors of the students, and that just sparked so much in me for starting my nonprofit, working on my doctorate, and all of those journeys took me to, we need to get out into community because these children are in survival mode.
Yes.
The community is in survival mode. And in order to do that, we need to engage with these people, get to know them, give them the support. We need to make this a village, educate them and empower them so they know that at the end of the day, if I'm standing in that seat, it's the community who says what gets done. And we need to have leaders who are being held accountable to their community. And ultimately, that's where my heart lies. My heart beats for Barstow because they spark so much in me that I would have never imagined.
Amen.
Well, good evening to the community. My name is Leslie Irving. I'm running for re-election to Victorville City Council. I'm a candidate for District 5. That area is everything west of Elevado, east of 395, and north of Palmdale. I'm running because, well, first of all, before I go any further, I want to thank the sponsors for this forum. I think these kinds of videos and these kinds of opportunities for candidates to come out to share their point of view is essential, especially if you're going to make the most important decision, that is to elect new leadership for the next 4 years. I'm a teacher by profession, so it's really nice to sit next to another fellow educator. My campaign is centered on resilience, building out our infrastructure, and also economic development. When I think about Victorville, I think about the Joshua Tree, withstanding the harshest of conditions. Victorville is very much, is that it? I was just getting out. Don't give me a mic, because I'll handle it. Okay? I'll pass this on, thank you.
I brought my own stopwatch, so I'm going to start right now. So my name is Derek Marshall, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Congress out here in the High Desert. I feel really, really excited to be on this stage tonight with all these wonderful people. I've worked alongside them, and yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. Look, a little bit about me. I'm a community organizer. I'm not a rich guy. I have known the struggle. I'm an Uber driver. Some of you in here may have ridden in my Uber before. There have been days that I was so broke that the only thing I could afford to eat was a 19-cent banana from Trader Joe's and free coffee back when that was a thing before the pandemic. You know, I understand the assignment. I was at the DNC a few weeks ago, and Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama, they said what the assignment was, and that is to organize our communities, to be in community, to go to Washington, to bring back our tax dollars so that we invest back in community. My name is Derek Marshall. I'm running for Congress here in the High Desert. All power to the people.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Ochoa and I'm running for Hesperia City Council District 1. I'm a community health worker by trade. I understand the work that's being done in this room. I walk the streets of not just my city, but the entire High Desert is my office. From the mountains to Needles to Trona, I service our High Desert community to the fullest. I'm here to represent hardworking people, fight for affordable housing, which is my #1 platform issue. I'm here to make sure that we fight for those resources, make sure that we're advocating for our folks here. What got me in this race is the United States versus Hesperia, where they passed a local ordinance right here during the Trump years to target people of color for eviction. I want to make sure that never happens again. I want to fight to make sure that we're bringing in better resources, parks, and working on building up our community with innovative infrastructure and economic development. I'm here for the future. The past is behind us. I'm ready to move forward. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Blanca Gomez. I'm a current city council member. I have a lot of academics, academia in my background, including a master's in public admin, and I'm shifting over to information technology. Bridging the gap is very important for us. Another thing that I'd like to share is I'm not only running for the Victorville City Council, I'm also running for San Bernardino County Assessor Recorder's Office. So if you live in Rancho, Rialto, all those areas within the housing of San Bernardino County, you'll see my name on the ballot. You vote for whoever you believe makes the best choice, but I'm running to give an opportunity for people that don't have it. En español es muy importante para mí también dedicar tiempo. Mi nombre es Blanca Gómez, un placer. Yo crecí en el gobierno básicamente desde la edad de 3 años. Mis padres son mexicanos. No tuve la placencia de conocerlos, pero estoy corriendo para 2 oficinas. El condado de San Bernardino, que es la asesoría, y también estoy corriendo para la ciudad de Victorville. Así que si por favor usted conoce mi nombre o quiere votar por mí, por favor corra la voz. Es la única manera de ganar. La oportunidad está aquí. Gracias.
Well, thank you all of the candidates for those opening statements. I want to start with the state level. And tonight I believe that the focus of this community forum is on housing, right? And so I'm going to ask you to specifically address the housing issue. You all have your platforms and there are a number of issues and we can all agree that there are a number of needs for the High Desert. But tonight specifically, these organizations that have put this together wanted to intentionally focus on housing. So if you would work with us to make sure that your answers and your thoughts are focused on housing. Even though I know that there are other issues and things that are equally as important to you. But that's the reason that most of the people tonight are here in this room. Am I right?
Right, right.
All right, so I want to start with those who are running at the state level, right? And so just for clarity, that would be Assemblyman Carrillo, right? And Senator 2B, Middleton, right? And Richard Ortega. Do I have that correct? Ricardo, I'm sorry, Ricardo. Okay, so Ricardo, let's start with you. And Derek. I'm so sorry, Derek. You were down
at the federal level.
You were at the federal level,
Yes.
though. Yes, at the state level. Excuse me? Still 1 minute, but we're going to give them 2 minutes to answer this question. Okay? All right. The question is, how will you work to secure and allocate sufficient state funding, such as the proposed $18 billion annually, to meet the affordable housing needs of Californians? And so, Ricardo?
Well, I think for me specifically is making sure that the money that I get from Sacramento goes to the communities that are being impacted. That's the number one thing. But I think it also goes to who is going to be in those city council members, because my job is to bring money from Sacramento down to the city council so that they can develop and provide affordable housing. That is my job. That is our job in the state level, to write legislation and zoning, but also to make sure the money goes where it's supposed to be going. I think it is very crucial to make sure that we alleviate the cost and the bureaucracy that happens to build affordable housing, but also making sure that we fight against racism that exists when it comes to affordable housing, because that does exist. The other part is acknowledging those first-time home buyers and building that economic generational wealth. I myself was able to buy my home when I was 21, leaving foster care. So we need to make sure that we continue to fund programs that allow individuals, people of color, to buy homes and to not only be dependent on affordable housing, but to grow and to buy their homes, and so that they can have generational wealth and making sure funding goes where it's supposed to be going.
Assemblyman Carrillo, same question.
Well, obviously getting the money down to where it needs to be spent for the housing units that we need. For decades, a lot of that money has been going to cities like Los Angeles, the Bay Area, San Diego, those areas where it's very, very expensive to build. It is also true that we continue to be more affordable in the high desert. We continue to see families moving up here. The way that those formulas are created, allocating that money, puts us at a big disadvantage. Something that I've been doing in Sacramento is making sure that those formulas, the way that the money gets distributed, takes into account the needs of the high district, the district that I represent, but also even going beyond that. A city planner by profession, accessory dwelling units is something that we all can do. Those that are lucky enough to own their home, they can actually build a second dwelling unit in the back of their house. I've made that very, very feasible now with 2 bills that have been passed. One of them has been passed last year. That is that anybody that wants to build a second house in their house, they can simply go to a city hall, go to the building department and get a pre-approved plan without having to hire an architect or an engineer to draw the plans for them and wait 2 or 3 months for them to go through the process. That becomes effective coming January 1st. So for me, that's also bringing generational wealth. Black and brown communities, it's known that we still face a lot of systemic racism when we go to apply for a mortgage. This will actually facilitate building homes more rapidly, rather than just waiting to wait for multi-family number of units, 200 units, 300 units. And very quickly too, we also need to work on reforming CEQA. CEQA becomes an impediment as the California Environmental Quality Act. We need to make sure that CEQA becomes federal for building homes, not only for building sports stadiums like SoFi. That's something that we need to make sure that happens so that our needs here and throughout the state, first of all here, where people keep coming up to live here, and also invest in public transit because we keep going downhill to work. Thank you.
Middleton.
All right. Thank you. I'm really pleased that Assemblymember Grillo raised the question of the formulas. One of the things that we have in California is the 13 largest cities in California, all 350,000 population and above, have had a very effective lobbying effort in Sacramento to make sure that funding comes to their cities. The smaller cities have been left out. And oftentimes the formulas that are used give greater weight to those big cities than to the small cities. There's not a city in my district that is over 85,000 in terms of population. I have been a vice president of the League of California Cities, and I'm going to stand up for the small cities to make sure that we get all of the funding coming into our cities. We need to make it easier to build housing. We need to make certain that we are more supportive of people who are trying to get into housing. When I was growing up in the 1960s, we had various kinds of loan programs that made it easy for people to get loans to get into housing. We need to come back and do that again. And we need to concentrate on those cities that want to build affordable housing and make sure that we're providing those cities the funding that they need in order to be able to build housing when they are going to build housing. If Apple Valley doesn't want to build housing and Hesperia does, then I want to give money to Hesperia. Or wherever it may be. We have spent too much time fighting with one another as to whether the housing is going to be in this city or that city. I want to build it where the city wants to see housing built and make sure that we are addressing both affordable housing and market rate housing. It costs too much to build affordable housing. We've got to bring those prices down.
Derek Marshall.
So obviously state and federal, I'm going to start a little timer here. So obviously state and federal, so you have money coming from Sacramento versus money from Washington. I think fundamentally, I just want to say we're experiencing a housing crisis right now. It's a thing of supply and demand, and this is why we're seeing really, really high, outrageous rent prices and mortgages, etc. I think that in order to solve that, we need to have a public option for housing. In areas and countries that have little to no houseless population or homeless population, it is because 1/3 of a city's population will be public. And what that means is that rather than have to fill out and get credit checks and stuff like that, you're able to show, are you a student, are you houseless, you get housed first, and it's a tiered system. And once everybody's housed, then it goes to like, okay, you're earning $35,000 a year, you're earning $50,000 a year, you're earning $100,000, and there's no difference fundamentally. I think that any type of program that's going to expand resources and bring up money to bring back resources from DC to support these programs, I'm going to support. Also in terms of getting people and first-time home buyers into their homes, I'll support programs like that. I think, again, I see a couple of people in here from the Inland Equity Land Trust. This morning I almost got into an accident. I almost got rear-ended because I was getting so inspired as I was driving into Old Town Victorville. And I was thinking to myself, Old Town Victorville here, with a $250 million grant, we could buy a lot of the housing here in trust, and it could be a community land trust, which would prevent gentrification from happening. And so it's multi-tiered. It's hard to explain in 2 minutes, but I agree with what everyone's saying. So thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to move to City Council, those candidates who are running for City Council. And what I'm going to ask is that you respond in a minute and a half. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we can get through as many questions as possible. So in all fairness, I ask for you candidates to honor the time frame, and I know that's a tall order, but we would greatly appreciate it because we want to hear as much as we possibly can from you where you stand on this particular issue. So I'm going to start with, who has the mic?
I have.
Okay, why don't we pass it down to Mr. Godina and you'll pass it back, so we'll end here with Ms. Gomez. So this is the question for all of the City Council candidates. In our conversations around housing production, how do we make sure to include people who have less access to the affordable housing process?
So housing is a very important part of our lives. It is beyond the abilities of a city to remedy that solution. That is why we need every one of these candidates up here to be voted in as a block if we really want to have change. The change starts from the top and it comes down. All the city level can do is ask for the members up in higher levels to help. La vivienda es importante para cada uno de nosotros y es un problema más grande que una ciudad puede corregir. Necesitamos la ayuda de cada uno de estos candidatos que están corriendo para la oficina más alto para que ellos puedan ayudarnos a nosotros en la ciudad. Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. So, and what you said was providing access for those who don't have access. I think as an educator, my biggest thing is to make sure that all of the people in my community are educated on what is available to them. I feel like I've said, for Barstow to be so small, the information should just pop in someone's head and it should just smack you through your wall because it's so small that there's no reason why people have grown up in Barstow and not known for certain opportunities that are available to them when they are experiencing houselessness or they're struggling with paying for things and they can make it available to certain people. So I think that's a big thing that I've noticed in our community, that we really need to ensure that our people are able to know what is going on at all the time. And I think that it's holding our leaders accountable to make sure that they are getting out into the community and engaging with them and making all of their resources available to them and advocating at all levels for our community to get to receive those opportunities.
Thank you.
Yes, the question is would you repeat the question?
Sure.
Yes.
In our conversations around housing production, how do we make sure to include people who have less access to the affordable housing process?
Okay, thank you for that question. Well, first of all, I want to say that from my perspective, housing insecurity is actually a public safety issue. Safe housing is absolutely necessary. So for those that don't have access or they have less access to affordable housing, I think that public housing and rent control are essential. Moving people from renting to home ownership. I'm familiar with some programs, but it's so important that those programs are regulated so that people are not exploited. But for me, she mentioned it, I see housing insecurity daily in my classroom as a teacher. Rent stabilization and rent control are essential. Public housing is essential. Safe housing is essential. And so with that being said, when we talk about affordable housing, I do want to say one thing though in favor of the community, how should I say this? We have all of these state representatives here. We really need you guys to help move the needle forward for us here in the local cities. We need you to help move you spoke about formulas, but we also need things like helping us mitigate those Joshua trees so that we can build more affordable housing. I just want to put that, I see you smiling, but you know what I'm talking about. We have some other environmental issues that prevent us from doing what we need to do. But again, housing, the lack of housing, that's a public safety issue, and we need to do everything that we need. Thank you. All right.
Thank
I
you.
guess I'm the most verbal person.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that I look at as the main issue is public health, right? So lack of housing is a public health issue, and I love that Leslie said it's also a public safety issue. Where there's a lack of housing, there's increased crime, there's increased health issues, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, where people are driving more, increases traffic incidences. We have 30,000 Hispanics leave the city every day to go work down the hill. Over 90,000 people in the high desert leave down the hill. That's because they can't afford to live here and work here. They have to go and find jobs, multiple jobs down the hill. And like Assemblyman Juan Carrillo pointed out, we are losing family time and that increases mental health issues. So when we have all these issues come together, we have to start looking at the solutions of finding the resources, making sure that the resources are readily available to social service providers such as the ones in this room, and making sure that we're increasing that flow of money to these programs, funding them, and like it was said just a moment ago, we have to make sure that people aren't being exploited either. We understand that there's a huge gray area when it comes to the funding and how the fundings are used. So we do need to make sure that the funding is being used appropriately and making sure that people have access to it. I'm so ready to see public housing throughout the high desert in a responsible way that's going to make sure that young people and young families can be housed.
And Ms. Gomez?
Yes, so I believe that housing production accessibility isn't a new concept. It's been happening since the beginning of time, and we can go back to the history of, or the annals of our country. We encouraged and we thought about the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we're always struggling to what that means for each one of us or categorically. So it's more than thinking about housing. It traverses things like the market value, it traverses things like environment, the circle of life. So it's not a very easy thing to tackle, but what it is what my professors call a wicked problem. A wicked problem is just so enveloped with so much that it's so difficult to tackle. But as a council member, what I have continued to do is try to bring propositions that someone may second, or maybe write a letter with all my council if there is support, and move it forth in that direction. So it takes more than one person, I'm going to tell you that. If you're not there sitting as a nonprofit or as a member, believe me, the struggle that I have had is very difficult the last 7 years. Para hablar en español, lo que está pasando de la producción de la casa no es fácil, es más económica, a veces tiene educación, tiene que ver mucho aparte de lo financiero, tiene que ver de cómo nosotros estamos tratando de procurar ser un personal mejor, y eso no termina aquí.
Thank you. I want to go back to our state representatives, and Mr. Marshall, I'm going to include you in this because you're the only federal representative here this evening. But I think that this question is an important one, and I'm very interested to hear the responses. How would you ensure that rural communities receive adequate support for their unique housing challenges, especially in light of recent funding cuts? And I think that that is so important because of here in the high desert, we know the challenges that we face. So, Mr. Ortega.
I think it really, can you read the question one more time?
Sure. How would you ensure that rural communities receive adequate support for their unique housing challenges, especially in light of recent funding cuts?
Okay. So I think my district overlaps with Derek Marshall, maybe like 80 to 90% of land-wise. And so number one thing is really going into those rural communities to talk to the community. We have an elected official that doesn't even know where the heck Boron is or where Yermo is. And so it really goes back to understanding the communities that you're representing. So for me, it's really going into those communities, talking not only to the city council members, but to the people, right? Because the people have a specific way of doing things or wanting things. And so I think for me, it's really going back to listening to what the community needs. And then it takes me working with Lisa Middleton and Juan Carrillo to say, hey Juan, hey Lisa, I need funding for my rural communities. I need funding for California City. I need funding for other communities on this side of town for housing, for jobs, to create opportunities in my district. So it really goes back to finding the money where it's at in our state budget and having conversations with my colleagues on the state level to say, these are the needs that I have for my district, how can I help your rural communities in your district, and going back and forth. But it really goes back to relationships, understanding your district, in understanding the people's needs in those areas. And we can find money somehow, some way. We can find a philanthropist or a big corporation that might want to come in and also support our communities.
Thank you. And I just want to remind those who are responding that you have a minute and a half. Okay? And the question once again is, how would you ensure that rural communities receive adequate support for their unique housing challenges, especially in light of recent funding cuts?
The funding cuts that we see coming through the state because of the state budget gives an opportunity to work with private developers. But there's a lot of challenges in working with private developers second and high desert because of the Joshua Tree. It is frustrating for developers to go through that process because it just takes time and is very expensive. That's why we introduced a bill that would also include commercial and industrial development so that cities, local jurisdictions are able to do the permitting process. Cities like Palmdale and 29 Palms have been doing that for decades. So we need to give that back to the local governments because they're the ones that know how to do it best. Once we're able to clear those hurdles of the Joshua trees, then developers will save time. Time to them means money. We also need to start looking at the partnership with the local governments too in terms of infrastructure. Here in the high desert, we don't have sufficient infrastructure like water lines, like roads, like electric challenges that we have with Edison being able to provide services for developers. And to them, that's delays, and those delays mean that they're losing money. They're losing money, we're losing time to house the people who need housing now. We need to accelerate the housing production by working with developers and the local jurisdictions to be able to make it easier for them to build those homes that are needed in the high desert. The CEQA issue is another one that I want to keep coming back to because that's another big impediment. Because CEQA takes time. There's lawsuits all the time with big housing developments, and that's something that we need to work on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things we have to do is change some of the perception. For so many people, because the high desert is less expensive than most other parts of Southern California, there's a perception out there that somehow or another it's easy to buy housing in the high desert. That's just simply not true. So we also have to be willing to fight for the communities of the high desert and other disadvantaged communities throughout this district. And I am willing to go up there and make sure that we get our fair share of resources. So much of it comes back to making sure that the roads are adequate to get to where we need to build the housing. But there's another part of the equation when it comes to affordability, and that's how much money people are earning. And what we need to do is make sure that everyone who is working is earning a living wage in 40 hours of work. My opponent opposed the raise in the minimum wage for fast food workers, and McDonald's is pouring money into her campaign because she was willing to stand with the franchise owners instead of standing with the employees. I will stand with the employees so that they get the wages they need to be able to afford a house.
Okay, so I took a lot of notes here. So when I'm driving around Uber, when we've been out talking and out the doors and stuff like that, number one thing that I hear here in the high desert is that there's not enough fun things to do. The second thing that I hear is that there's not enough local jobs here in the high desert that are paying union wages. And the third thing that I hear is that there's not enough affordable housing. And sometimes it feels like I'm running for governor of a small to medium-sized state because the district is so big, right? We got Joshua Tree, we got Big Bear, we got Barstow, we got California City, and so we have parts of the district that are big sky country where they want less development, and then parts of the district that are bigger. And Lisa Middleton and Ricardo know this because we've been going out in the community and listening. I think the way that we advocate for rural Americans is by doing what we're doing right here, which is one of the first times in the high desert history that we've ever done this in our district, and that is we're running as a coalition. You have never seen such a group of people coming together as this coalition coming together in a community that is going to be able to advocate because our district, and my district that I'm running in, is 10% of California's entire state legislature, including 3 of the most likely to flip red to blue seats, are right here in the high desert. This is the perfect time, right? And as they say in union songs and stuff like that, they ain't gonna listen if one man squawks, but they gotta listen if the union talks.
Now this will be our last question. I'm going to ask this question to all of the candidates. And then after that, I believe we'll go to Q&A. Is that what you want? Okay. Each of you will have 1 minute to respond to this question, okay? What is your position on recognizing housing as a human right through a state constitutional amendment? And we'll start with Blanca.
You know, as much as I endeavor to believe that we can pass something like that, it's very, very, very difficult. We would have to change the trajectory of the nepotism that occurs in the government system, you know, but it's wishful thinking. And if we had that magic wand, we can't wait. When we were able to create a constitutional basis for the topic that you said, I think I would advocate. You please remind me what...
Yes. What is your position on recognizing housing as a human right through a state constitutional amendment?
And so, personally, I've been on Section 8. I was in the waiting list for 10 years. So when I tell you that I'm one of the people that are in the trenches, it really is. It's not easy. So for me not to be able to get on the Section 8 after 10 years and then skipping and coming again and being on Section 8 and not being, and I'm one person who is just up here, right? But what about everybody else who's probably unhoused, who has an opportunity or the vulnerability that's not going to be able to? I don't have the solution.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa, same question. Do you want me to read the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay. What is your position on recognizing housing as a human right through a state constitutional amendment?
I definitely would support that, just because I know how hard it is for our local folks to find homes, to buy homes, to be able to get into an apartment is almost a Herculean feat. I know a group of young people, it took them almost 2 months to get into an apartment together, and they're volunteers here throughout the high desert doing good work, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle for an adult male, 38 years old, to find a place to rent. So it's hard work out there just trying to live. And it's a human right. People come out of prison, people come out of hospitals, people come out of the foster care system, and they need to be able to have access to not only affordable housing, but good paying jobs. We fix the housing crisis by creating good paying jobs in our area, and we increase generational wealth across our desert. That's how we fix our housing crisis and make sure that it becomes a human right. It's a human right to have a decent job. It's a human right to have an affordable home.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall.
Absolutely. So our Constitution, our federal Constitution, opens up with a Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights starts with the freedom of speech, etc. In the 1930s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, president during the Second World War, came up with a second Bill of Rights, and I'm going to read it right now. The second Bill of Rights calls for every American to have a right to a job, an adequate wage and decent living, medical care, economic protection during sickness, accident, old age, or unemployment, a good education, and a decent home. I believe that we need to pass the second Bill of Rights for the United States.
Irving, same question. You want me to repeat the question?
Read the question.
Okay. What is your position on recognizing housing as a human right through a state constitutional amendment?
I think I can answer this question under a minute. I'm all in for that because I do think, as I stated before, I think housing insecurity is a public safety issue, it's a public health issue. And I think that every person is entitled to safe housing that is up to par. I have members of family that are housing insecure. They move from pillar to post. It's sad because a lot of them are children. And they're moving to my house and going to another relative's home and so forth. But I guess when I think about this, I think about the emancipation of slaves down in the South. when they were emancipated, they actually, a lot of them became homeless. And then they instituted vagrancy laws, and then what did they do? They incarcerated them, and thus the emergence of the prison industrial complex. So to me, this is a major issue, and I am all for it. I realize I am.
Would you like me to read the question again?
No, because I 1,000,000% agree, and that's my motto, to bring humanity to Barstow, because I see that in meeting your needs for survival, that includes, yes, food and water, but it also includes shelter, and not just a tent that our Barstow winds can knock over in a second. But, oh yes, you know I'm an educator, yes. And that also relates to our children, whether they are living in situations that would still consider them to be homeless, which would be living in hotels, if those are still considered homeless people, but also the environment that puts them in, that triggers what they do and how they are able to be educated and how their brain is developing. So that there's so many things that connects to that. Absolutely, that is a humanity issue. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't need to enact a constitutional amendment to understand that housing is something that absolutely everyone needs. What we need to be doing is concentrating our energy on making sure that we've got the funding and that we have everyone able to work at a living wage so that they can afford housing. So I'm going to put all of my energy into making sure that everyone is housed, beginning now.
Thank you. Housing should be a human right.
That's right.
And it has already been established by other politicians before us that they agree it is a human right, and we need to educate the community on what this second Bill of Rights is, and we need to support it and pass it. Personally, I have my daughter and her children living with me. She's a military vet, and she is unable to find and afford housing. So we have to pull together as a family and help each other. Vivienda es algo muy importante para toda la comunidad y tenemos que saber que hay una segunda enmienda de Bill of Rights que incluye estos derechos y tenemos que educar a nuestra comunidad y apoyarnos y a votar y apoyar cada uno de esos candidatos para que podamos tener derechos a viviendas como humanos.
Thank you.
I support that 1,001%, where housing is a human right and needs to be a state constitutional right. Not only that, but we, as hard as it may sound to go through a process like that, I'd just like to point out that Senator Bradford introduced the reparations bill. I think that's something that we continue to fight for, because the consequences of not having the state pay the reparations to our community, our Black community, is very, very vivid. The lack of education opportunities, the lack of housing, the lack of economic growth for our Black community, Black and brown communities, and I'm going to include myself in that, because that is why we are the way we are right now. We are not able to compete with those that were not affected by the reparations that have been implemented. But I just want to close with quick by letting you know that here on this table we have the majority of the council candidates. 3 of them are here. That's the majority in Victorville.
I too support that addition, but I think it's very important also to, while the process of a state constitutional amendment happens, that we address the concern. That we don't just leave it to the state constitutional amendment to happen, that like Lisa was talking about, we're actually doing the work, right? So making sure that we find ways of addressing the need of housing in our district. I think that Joshua Tree bill is gonna have to happen. Somehow, some way, we're gonna have to find a balance of how to address that issue, specifically for my district, because I have a lot of rural towns. all around the area, and a lot of them need housing, but there is that issue of the Joshua Tree or different development issues that happen. So I support that bill, but also making sure that we continue to do the active work of what you guys are sending it to Sacramento for.
Now, before we move to the Q&A, I want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up. I think it says something that you found this important enough to make time to be here and to face the constituents that you want to serve. That's important. So let's give them a round of applause.
That I don't know a lot of people that make that kind of money in the high desert. So even if you're incentivizing the developers to come here, who can afford to rent them? So are you thinking as a collective, are you thinking of some innovative ways to add subsidies for people to be able to afford the housing that you're speaking about? I know that you support it, but are you thinking about some innovative strategies to be able to make those opportunities affordable for those that live here, love here, worship here, that do all the things here? Are you thinking about those things as a collective?
And Nicole, is that question to a particular candidate or all candidates?
Well, Derek said you're a block, so put your heads together. I know you guys are smart.
I'm gonna take, if I can start, I'll
we'll
start
go
off.
to Derek and then I saw the
I just wanna
serving.
Well,
Okay.
I have something that I want to explore.
Oh, yeah.
May I go ahead?
Yes.
You know, you, hello?
Push the button. Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Sound?
Is it on there? Okay. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to explore universal basic income in the city of Victorville. I know a lot of people think that it's a handout, but it's not a handout. It's a safety net for helping those that are going through transition. And God knows we're going to go through transition. We have issues, whether it's economic, the shifts in the market, or even for those that will acknowledge that climate change is affecting us. Right. We are going to go through a bumpy road as we transition as a society, moving away from petroleum-based products. I want to explore universal basic income as a safety net to help people through that transition, whether that's to reskill their education or just get it together. I don't want to see people in survival mode. Like I talked about it, I've been in survival mode. I'm still in survival mode. I want to see people thrive. So that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, here to that. I was showing Chris my bank account the other day. I said, we play this game. Like, guess how much money I have in my account? And then he's like -$2. I was like -$4. So, I think most of us on the stage have known struggle, and I just did the calculation. So, Senator, one of the senators right now has a plan for 15 million units, Senator Sanders, which works out to be 34,482 units per congressional district. Some more, some less. So it's actually moving in the direction, that the statistics that you just said. And I think what's important is that when I talk about a public option for housing, when we talk about this public housing option that opens up, the way that it functions and the way that it works is that if you're making $15,000 a year working at McDonald's or working at Amazon, you're just getting your start in the world, and you want to move out of a multi-generational household in Hesperia or Victorville, then what you can do is you're the first in line. You can go and you get access to one of these beautiful units. And just because it's public housing, the way that it works in other countries, there's no difference. You can have a beautiful private house right next to a public house. The apartments and everything are exactly the same. The only thing that's different is that I show up and I give my income statement, right, or my taxes from the last year, where it shows I made $15,000 or $25,000 working for Uber, and then they say, okay, you're only going to pay $500 a month. And then the next year, I submit my taxes again. Maybe I earn a little bit more, maybe I earn a little bit less, but the amount that you pay in funding is like that. And so, just to kind of tie all this up, because I think Leslie brought up a really, really important point, it's the whole package of the kitchen budget that we have right now. It's how do we figure out healthcare costs, right? How do we take that? Do we have a Medicare for all system, the housing piece of it, the universal basic income piece of it? So it's all of these things comprehensively working together. So at the end of every month, after we work 35 or 40 hours a week, we're able to put aside $1,000, and we have a house, and we have education for our kids, and we have housing, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. And Ms. Middleton? And we're going to ask you to keep your, I lost my timekeeper, to keep your comments to about 45 seconds.
I think I can do better than that.
Great.
Not only do we need to be building housing, we need to be very careful about who's building that housing.
Right.
And it needs to be people from the local community, most particularly our youth who are graduating from our high schools and our community colleges, being paid a living wage, so that they can afford to buy a house that they're building.
Okay.
Besides the models that were being discussed, there's several different models. One of them is called workforce housing, and that's between partnerships between cities and school districts that own property. We're exploring that in Palmville, where the city of Palmville owns 10 acres, the school district owns another 10 acres. They're together and working with them, the landowners, to develop those for housing, so that we can provide those as an incentive for public works and public safety and police, teachers, to want to come out to the high desert, to be teachers, to be police officers, firefighters, whatever the case may be, social service. To me, that's an idea that I believe young kids coming out of college would take, because housing is very pricey, we know that. So if you give them the opportunity to build a unit for them, if they come and work in our communities, they will get whatever percentage discount, I would say, for them to be able to stay in our community, not having to come from Santa Clarita or from Southern, Riverside, come out here, because there is nothing here for them available where they want to be. So those are different models. Another one would be inclusionary housing, making developers build a number of units that are for low-income residents. In fact, that is happening already, but it's happening again in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in San Diego, something that we're not able to attract here, because I want to go back to the formulas. Because those formulas exist and are just not in our favor. It's always in favor of those big urban areas. And those are things that are already in place, but we just need to find a way to bring them out here to the areas.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And Mr. Ortega, 45 seconds or less, please.
So my thing is also making sure that if we're going to have these housing units in our district in the high desert, we need to make sure that we can afford those, right? But on top of that, offering the educational and professional for the next generation, right? So we're talking about solar panels, renewable energy, offering job opportunities and training for the workforce to build that up. And also we're talking about artificial intelligence. Why can we not, start teaching the next generation of the workforce to go into that? And making sure for my district in the 34th, making it a renewable energy, artificial intelligence district and investment with the investment of having a workforce that can go into those fields. Those jobs are very high in demand, but also are good paying jobs for a lot of people.
Thank you, sir. I believe the lady here in the front. Did you have a question?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. And we're going to ask if you will try, if at all possible, to answer in about 30 seconds, so we can get as many questions as possible.
As a mother with an adult child with mental health disabilities, when we talk about housing, I want you to know how we're going to address housing for people who need assisted living. I live in the city of Barstow. We do not have a homeless shelter. We are low on transitional assisted living for our youth. We don't have anything. We should not have to hustle and bustle to get 30 minutes away to come up to Victorville to house anybody. We shouldn't have to be forced to have our adult children live in our home, because sometimes we need a break as well, right? And it's better for them to be in their own homes and they can get their independence while we get our independence and still help them. So while we're talking about housing, what are we going to do about our disabled children and our mental health and our youth that are not housed?
Okay. And who would like to start answering that question?
It starts by having one of us being elected and re-elected, because the representation that we've had for decades now, has not been able to bring those resources that we need. I think that starts by letting us know what the needs are for those that are running for office, and also those of us that have served just 2 years for me in my case, and making sure that, again, going back to the limited resources that the state has now because of the state budget, but making sure that the allocations come to throughout the state, not just to the urban areas.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
And I was just
Mr.
gonna,
Ortega,
I was just gonna,
30 seconds.
okay. I was just gonna say, you know, me, I work in mental health. I was in an intensive mental health case management after, and so I know that the complex of making sure you house individuals who have disabilities or disadvantaged. So I need to make sure that the housing, that you don't have to come all the way to Victorville, that I'm able to build and give funding to a nonprofit in Barstow that can house, not only house them, but provide the wraparound services to make them successful.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address that? Mr. Middleton? 30 seconds, please.
When Ronald Reagan closed the mental health hospitals that were operated by the state of California, he said community clinics will be built all over California. That's not what happened. And it is 40 years too late. But we have got to build the local facilities and staff those facilities so that individuals everywhere in California can receive mental health assistance they need.
Okay, 30 seconds, sir, please.
Just to address that, again, as a community health worker, I have personally sat with people waiting for a crisis response team to come that doesn't come. Right, that doesn't come. And that is a crime. It's a crime against humanity. Basic needs of people here in the high desert. There are no resources. So what I want to do is make sure that we're inviting those resources to Hesperia. As of now, there are 2 providers in Hesperia, and we need 10 more to serve this community. And the city doesn't want that to happen. I'm gonna make sure it does.
Thank you.
So I believe that less police interaction with our disabled population is very important. Because what they do is they just exacerbate with their military tactics, and they get us in a worse situation than what we could have been. That's my opinion.
Thank you. All right, was there another question in the house? Did I see? Okay.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a question, a suggestions type thing. On the housing situation, one of the things that I was wondering, if possible, could the state possibly become the banker? Meaning the government. Up there, they become the banker. Let's do a 5% on the cost of homes, and same money that the banks make on interest and amortization and all that stuff, that money pours back into the state. If we can come up with a bill that is written so that people can actually, about 5%, most of us can probably afford a note. I also understand we need the jobs. That's has to happen. But if the state themselves, so all them billions of dollars up there in the government, a portion of that goes as bank funding for homes. And that goes all the way across California, so that we don't have the different, as you put it, formulas and different, this branch over here getting more, this city getting more, that city getting more. It's universal throughout the state of California at a 5% fixed rate for all housing for those that meet the criteria. Is something like that possible to be written as a bill?
Okay. Ms. Middleton, 30 seconds, please.
We've done it before. We did it with VA loans that came from the state of California that help people get into housing. So if we can do bonds there, we can do bonds in other places.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to answer that question? No? Okay.
We have a question here that's been waiting.
Okay.
Hi, okay, so I'm just happy that, oh, thank you. Here you go. So I'm happy for events like this because I'm new to politics, so I'm learning a lot, and it's very nice to meet you all. Is there a such thing as like a state of the high desert? and this is for like the city council members who are running, because the reason why I'm asking is because, you know, we all speak of the high desert, but then it's like Hesperia, Victorville, it seems so separated. And then it's like, if we could come together, you know, as a region, I think we could get more, you know, done. And like, you just had a great idea about, you know, the state funding houses and stuff. So it's like, if we could come together and have like maybe state of the high desert address, you know, and then start including the school districts, and, you know, because we, like you talked about it, Lisa, about healthcare. We need a hospital, a trauma center out here, you know, but I'm sure, you know, is it going to be in Atlanta? Is it going to be in Hesperia? Is it going to be in Victorville? But if we came together, you know, we can decide that. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'd like to address that question. That's a really good question. The high desert is a region, and of course the cities in the high desert work collaboratively together. But you're right, we do have the state of Victorville where Blanca and I participate, and then there's the state of Apple Valley and so forth. And I think the reason that we come together, we can work collaboratively, but at the end of the day, I am accountable to you, but I'm mostly accountable to the people of the city of Victorville. And now I'll be mostly accountable to the 5th district, because those are the constituents that elect us. So I understand what you're saying, and you know what? Let's make that happen, okay? Thank you.
Yes, 30 seconds, please. Thank you. To answer that question, you know, we do need to have more collaborative work. Collectively, we are a metropolitan region. We are becoming more and more populous. We do need a level 1 trauma center here in the high desert, absolutely. That is on number 4 on my platform, is to make sure that we're increasing social services, and that's one of them. We have to fight to get that hospital built to save the lives of our children and to save the lives of many other people that have to be flown over that mountain. And if the wind is blowing the wrong way, you're not going to get to where you need to get to, and people die. Okay, we need to save lives.
Yes, I wanted to address that. School boards are their own entities. Municipalities, they have their own elected officials. The County of San Bernardino has a separate way of doing its business. Mojave Water Agency, its own elected officials. The Air Quality District has its own differential way of doing things together. So my point is that unless we all get together and sit in a committee to listen to what's going on, it's just almost nearly impossible. That's called bureaucracy.
So, thank you. Can I? And Mr. Ortega, 30 seconds, please, sir.
So, to your point about the high desert, you know, state of the address, I will say that's when the state officials can come in and give that report. Because our job is to hold all of them accountable, right? Because they're all going to come to us and say, hey, I have a bill that I want you to write because my city has this issue. Then it's up to us to take it on. And it's up to us to give them the money. So for us, how can, you know, Lisa, Juan Carrillo, Kid Muller, and myself do that address to you all? And you ask us questions. And it's our job to ask them questions and say, I have a constituent in my district that was talking about Victorville issues. I just gave you $5,000. What happened to that, right?
Thank you.
We're already doing that at the state level. We address the legislative package that we work on the assembly district level. Of course, the legislative package does not only address the 39th assembly district, the entire state, but in terms of letting you know what we're working on the state, we do that through a legislative town hall that we do at least once across the year.
Thank you. Mr. Godina?
Yes. So currently, our cities can only provide what our tax base allows us to provide. But the problem is that our tax base doesn't stay here in our cities. It goes elsewhere to other cities that they get the programs that we're asking for here. And we need to, and I would like to represent you so that we can keep that money here where we need it. I have a 31-year-old disabled son who is a member of the Indian regional empire, and he cannot have services here because there are no services here for him. And that is just not right. We pay our taxes, we need our services.
Thank you, Mr. President. 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, so it's an amazing question, and it's a lot of the things that like me and our team has been thinking about. And I think that honestly, we could talk about doing a high desert conference where we get together lots of different groups. I know that Victor Valley College hosts Coldwell Banker with some of the businesses, but I think more broadly speaking, we need to talk about trauma centers. We need to talk about fun things to do. We need to talk about more community investment. And so, doing a regional conference, I think, would be an amazing idea to do. So.
Thank you. Pastor Green, I'm going to ask that you be the last question. I'm going to ask if the candidates are planning to stay around so that if there are other questions in the room, they can come up to you one-on-one and ask those questions. Is that okay?
Can we have a young person here that I would love for her to be able to answer.
Oh, okay. Great.
That's okay.
And then Pastor Green, I think you'll be the last one.
Good evening to everyone. My question is directed towards everybody working in the high desert. So my question first of all is, if someone came to you with a proposal to build a new piece of public infrastructure in our city, like roads, bridges, maybe fix a new street, or public such as homeless shelters and food banks, how would you evaluate whether or not that project is worth implementing?
Was everybody able to hear that?
Switch microphones.
Come up here. Because I think her question is important, and we always want to encourage our young folks.
Can you guys hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, so my question was, if someone came to you with a proposal to build a new piece of public infrastructure in our city, such as roads, bridges, or fix a different street, or public such as homeless shelters and food banks, how would you evaluate whether or not that project is worth implementing?
And who would like to start in 30 seconds, please?
So I think as a Gen Z in this whole table, I'll say that that's an important part of it, right? And so all of that you just said is implementable. I think it's just, it'll kind of go into, I'll allocate the funds and then I'll give it to the city council members to make sure that it does happen. And I give them the streets, like, this street needs to be repaved, this area needs to have access to broadband, these areas need a new trauma center. So that's on me, or on all of us in the state level.
Thank you. Who else would like to answer that question?
I think we have to weigh out primarily the good that the projects that are going to be done, right? We have to look at the benefit that we're going to have here, and I trust the providers. I work with providers, every day, and I know that there are some things that the government just can't handle, and especially when you have a local government that is not socially minded, right? They have a one-sided perspective, and it's not helping the people. So we have to look at what's going to help the people.
Thank you. And Blanco?
Yes, for me, we have a capital improvement plan, so our infrastructure basically already has templation, so it's templated. So it's going to work in that direction once you have one council member who's a team captain and she can get a click, which has happened in Victorville. And once you get a click, then they can alter it. They won't go with the CIP. For homeless vetting, the way it works is when you get quick money from the government like ARPA, and it's all about accommodations and commodity, what happens in Victorville is you commodify our homeless members so that the city gets more money. It doesn't work for the homeless.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to answer that in under 30 seconds. I think to evaluate the proposal, one would think about the common good. How many people is it going to serve? And it sounds like it would serve the masses, all of the people. And Blanca brings up a good point. What it would require is that a council person get a second and push the needle forward. We include that in our strategic plan. So it is very doable. Thank you. And some of the best ideas come from the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll address it. Me and going for mayor and being on that seat, my first thing is when they come into a council and they address what you mentioned, I'm going to go into, let me research what we need and how that would affect our community, but ultimately present what I found and the benefits, the cons and everything to our community and see what their opinion is on that. Because ultimately, I think, yeah, if I think it is a good idea, but I want to know what the whole community that I am due to serve, how they feel about it and what they would want from that one. Of course, homeless shelter, we would want that, of course.
Thank you for that. And we're going to move on to our last question, and I also see that we've had a candidate join us. What we will do is we'll ask this last question. We'll come back around, introduce you, and allow you at least to have a minute opening statement, if you will. So it'll be kind of opening and closing statement, but we'll hear from you, okay?
Thank you so much. My name is Sharon Green. I am the executive director of the agency. Mr. Ochoa has sued the city of Hesperia. We triggered the HUD case and the issue with trying to close housing. But as the chair of the continuum of care, I want to know how we're going to bring this region together. We have had challenges with money going everywhere else but here. And if the money is needed up here, we need you all to come together, fight with us and not against us, to make sure we have enough housing, shelters, and community centers that we can really move the needle on. So how would you help bring it together?
In 30 seconds, please. Who wants to go first?
Okay, well, I'll just say really quickly. So we opened the coalition offices in Old Town Victorville, 15577 7th Street, and pretty much everyone here on stage is part of this coalition. And we chose Old Town Victorville because we care so deeply about, about a lot of the issues. And I think that Old Town Victorville is very reflective of the issues that we face here in the high desert. And I think all of us coming together, starting to meet, starting to be there, this office is most likely going to be a permanent feature of the high desert. And so I think starting off there, coming together, meeting up with us.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa, 30 seconds, please, sir.
Oh, I just hit a button. Something popped open, sorry. This issue is very personal to me, especially with the city of Hesperia. It was a personal attack against me and my family. I'm a biracial person. I come from an Afro-Latino home, and I also spent 11 years in prison. So when I got out, to know that there was a law that was passed that would target me and my family and make us homeless, and to find out how many victims there were, it made me disgusted. And I don't want to live in a region or a city that allows for these local laws to be passed. So we have to come together in community, not just in Hesperia, but throughout the high desert, to protect our people.
Thank you.
So one thing is, I say accountability, transparency, and be able to show what's going on. So our city manager makes over $250,000. I don't know if you guys understand. That's $1,000 a day. Yes. So I've been system impacted. These laws don't just come about because they do. They're also implemented on individuals who maximize their voice. So if anybody knew, I'm going to trial next week because I have a mouth to represent marginalized people. And that has happened because not of a law, but because there's people in power that can do that. So can you imagine if now we have laws that can implement and keep me guarded to do that?
Thank you. Anyone else want to answer that? Okay, Ms.
Dr. Green, I'm going to break it down. Policymakers rely on stakeholders. They rely on agencies that are really out there making the difference. So we need strong partnerships. That's number one. Number two, you need 3 people on the dais from the city council person's perspective. We have 3 up here. Make a mental note. We need 3 people to move the needle forward. Thank you.
Yes.
30 seconds, please.
We need to invest in our community and in ourselves by redirecting our taxes to the needs of our community.
That's right.
Like Council Lady Leslie said, we need 3 votes on the council to make anything positive happen in Victorville. We have 3 candidates here who think alike, who understand the needs of our community. Please support every one of these candidates because they will make the change that we all need.
Thank you. All right, and I believe Mr. Ortega, 30 seconds, please.
I was gonna say very quickly, it goes back to accountability, right? So the high desert for a long time hasn't had accountability down below when it comes to the other municipality areas. And so that's when us on the state level can do that and be a partner with you to put pressure on the city councils and school boards as well. So we have the support, we need to have the support of the people for us to also put the pressure on them when they're not listening to your needs.
Thank you. And would you please, yes, I wanted you to introduce yourself, the office that you're running for, and then just a minute of telling us your platform.
Okay, and can I answer the question, or would you rather me just do that? So I'm gonna answer the question.
Go ahead and answer the question.
Okay, so really quickly, what I was gonna say is on the accountability and transparency piece. A lot of times people are very comfortable in the positions that they are, but when you elect for people to be put in office, it's not about them, it's about you, period. And that's something that you have to go into the polls and consider. So if I'm on the city council, or some of my colleagues on the city council, we hear you, we represent you, and we bring that influence to make sure that what the people want is what they get.
Thank you. So with that, would you mind please introducing yourself and telling us which office you're running for?
Thank you. My name is Lakiri Williams. I am running for Town Council because Apple Valley is one of 21 cities in the state of California that refers to themselves as a town. So I'm running for Town Council District 2. I am the only person on the ballot that is not an incumbent. I am not your traditional politician. I am not the kind of person that you would see trying to run for office on a regular basis, but I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, period. So rather than just talking about it and complaining about it and protesting about it, I decided to do something about it, and that's why I'm running. I'm running for infrastructure, I'm running for safe roads, I'm running for safety for our children, I'm running for protection and accountability, I'm running so that what happened to Ryan Garner and March doesn't happen to anybody else in this area.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you, again, candidates, for being here this evening. It's my understanding that you're going to stay around for a little while, so if someone here has a question or wants to come up and have a little bit of conversation with you, you'll be here for a little while to do that. But thank you again. I want to thank you on behalf of myself, Pastor Green, Sir, all of the organizations that helped put this together, and of course the sponsors. I want to thank you for the opportunity.
What is this for?
Someone else will have to tell you that. That's not my job. I wish I had an answer though. I want to thank you for the opportunity for me to serve in this capacity. Again, I say, democracy is on the ballot. This is a critically important year. If you're not registered to vote, don't leave here tonight and not get registered to vote.
Right here.
And if you're registered to vote, make sure that you vote. It is incredibly important. This is serious business. We are talking about our lives and our livelihoods. We are talking about the communities in which we are bringing up our children and where our elders are being taken care of. There is nothing more critical at this particular time for us to turn our minds to than getting out to vote in November. So thank you very much for allowing me to be with you this evening. I hope that everybody has gotten something from this evening, and again, I want to thank all of the candidates for showing up. It shows your commitment that you have to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that ends the program of the 501(c)(3)s. And so I would like to introduce Ms. Maribel Nunez, who'd like to speak about mental health.
Thank you, everyone. Maribel Nunez here wearing my 501(c)(4) hat.
with IA votes. Some of you might have heard of IA votes. As a community partner here, we want to make an announcement. We're a group that does candidate endorsements and get out the vote. And we are endorsing the 1 Million Homes campaign. So after this event, I will share with you some information, of a little bit of information about where our voters here, what are they thinking about this 1 Million Homes campaign. Thank you, Pastor Green, and everybody here. Thanks so much. Oh, yes, that's right. So the question about the scan is for to get individuals to sign support of the 1 Million Homes campaign. Because the more people support this, it would not only let our candidates know, but you'd help us spread the word for other people. Because we will be sharing the information about how many people are signing on, which is what we're trying to do, get the word out. The 1 Million Homes campaign by 2030. As you know, folks said here, only 1% of our state budget is being used for affordable housing, sustainable, and so we need to change. We need community pressure, and we do have champions here, but power in numbers. Thank you so much.
And with that, we end our program. We thank each one of you for taking the time out to come and hear our hearts and then give us yours. Thank you so much.
So there's